Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Mare of Easttown, Season 1, Episode 1. It's called Miss Ladyhawke Herself. So we'll start spoiler-free because it is an Episode 1. It is a HBO show. It's a couple months old. Well, since it started. It didn't finish too long ago.
I think the last episode literally just finished.
But this is the winner of our pilot vote at the $10 tier on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV every month. Our patrons in that tier and up will vote between the three pilots for us to check out, and this is the winner in this particular case. This stars Kate Winslet as well as Guy Pearce, and bizarrely two notable young actresses who both impressed to different extents in different movies over the last several years.
I can think of one. Who's the second?
The teen girl from The Nice Guys is in this.
Yep.
In a lasting role, and to a lesser extent, didn't steal the show as much, but the teen girl from Pacific Rim Uprising is also in this pilot.
Yeah, I can't remember that one. I know for a fact you watched that movie not that long ago.
Yes. Admittedly, I have an advantage. I watched that like weeks ago, so I remember it better than perhaps you if you hadn't seen it since the theaters. But so I just thought that was interesting that there was two characters or two actors like that at the same time.
You're saying is the casting department is pretty good
for the most part. I may have one nitpick.
Ooh, interesting.
I mean, kind of a couple maybe, but one that I'm going to really complain about. And it's not actually that big a deal because it's not a big role, but I really hated it.
I have no idea what this is.
But yes, so this is a murder mystery show. This is a show where there's a killer on the loose and there's going to be an investigation. However, what makes this first episode kind of hard to judge that particular element on is that they made the choice with this show, which I believe is 7 episodes, to devote pretty much the entire first episode to before that really starts. Technically there's a background thing going on that does relate to it, but the real, we've got a body, we're going to have to investigate a murder, doesn't really happen until the very end. Yeah. And you know it's coming because the entire episode takes place over the course of a day, right? With the very exception of the very ending, which is people waking up the next morning. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that it kind of feels like it's doing almost the Twin Peaks thing, where okay, this is the start of everyone's day, but there's a body, and
I can see that.
And that's where the episode basically ends. But the episode takes its time establishing all of our main characters, establishing who they are, what their connections with each other are. The idea being, of course, that in theory, that when this news of a body hits and it ripples out to all these characters and how it affects them, it'll have a bit more meaning because of that, and they're a bit more fleshed out before the mystery starts. Now, whether or not that is the correct choice, or whether it's successful in doing that, is I guess what we'll be discussing largely in the course of this review. But that is what this does. So, Connor, how did you find episode 1 of Mare of Easttown? Which, for the record, is Kate Winslet's name. Her name is Mare. I've never heard a woman called Mare before, but this show has taught me something.
It's a female horse, isn't it? Is a mare?
Well, yeah.
So that's why it's not a very common name.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I've never heard of a person called Mare.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what I'm saying. That's presumably why it's not a common name.
I mean, did her parents look at her and go, you know what? Reminds me of a horse. I'm going to call her Mare.
That's some terrible parents.
Well, there was parents in this show, to be honest. Given some characters in this episode, but yeah.
Fair. To answer the question, though, I think it's a very good piece of filmmaking. Like, you know, as a piece of film, I think it's quite good. As an episode of TV, I think it's quite bad, especially as the first episode of a show.
I kind of get what you mean. Now, I've heard a lot of praise for this, and my understanding is the mystery gets quite good, which is very lately, but we can't tell that from the first episode.
What mystery? So,
I think technically there's a mystery. There's a body at the end. There's a mystery.
All right, there's a body for like 6 seconds.
That means there's a mystery, though. Technically, the mystery starts this episode. It's just obviously the exploration of said mystery is not really begun yet.
It basically starts in a post-credit scene.
So, I agree. It's fairly well directed. And that's not surprising, I don't think. Craig Zobel, director, I did recognize that name. I'm just clicking on him to remind myself what it is he did. Oh, that's interesting. So he's done a variety of things, some better than others. He did
the name's familiar for sure.
He did a film called Compliance, which I thought was pretty good, which was based on a true story of someone calling into a fast food restaurant and convincing Ann Dowd that one of her employees was wanted for something, and it basically was all this just forcing people to do things to her, and it was based on a true story. It was fairly well directed. He also did the really bland adaptation of Z for Zachary, which I have read, and I said Z because that's the pronunciation of the book.
Inexcusable still.
If it's the title, I'm going to say it the way the title's supposed to be said. I wouldn't say JZ.
Stop stealing Sean Locke's jokes.
I don't even know he said that. It's just a go-to example because it's in the name.
Sure.
How many people with names have just the letter Z on its own that you expect to be pronounced a certain way? Anyway, I also had The Hunt, the one that got like heavily delayed because of controversy in the last couple of years, which was kind of mediocre. So
yeah,
a very mix of stuff. But he also did a couple episodes of Leftovers, did an episode of Westworld. So he's done other HBO stuff in the past, which is I think was honestly where I mainly recognize his name is those shows.
I think it'll be that and The Hunt. I think that'll be where I'll have seen his name in, like, especially in articles discussing, hey, it was delayed for these reasons, and it'll be this person's film. So that's where I'll have seen it.
But regardless, it is fairly well directed. It has a very distinct style and tone right from the start. It treats it very kind of somber, where it's just kind of zoning in the house. I mean, the title of the show comes up over just the bedroom light coming on in the morning, and it's just a very quiet, peaceful. Everything feels very slice of life. It feels very natural, I would say. I think Kate Winslet's performance is very strong in the sense that she convinces me she is a normal human being who is just a disgruntled cop, but not in like a movie way, not in like the cop who's 2 steps away from their badge being taken away before she's
tired from being overworked.
Yeah, and she gets a lot of the same people calling her constantly. There's some, like the old woman who calls her at the start doesn't call the station like she's supposed to. She just calls her phone number, like her personal number. She clearly knows a lot of people in this small town. There's some backstory stuff set up, but it was, and I wasn't necessarily feeling her character too much in the first half, but it was more once it got to sort of get into some of the stuff with the ex-husband who's now got a new fiance. Like once it started getting to that, I was kind of like, oh, the way she's sort of reacting to some of this and her sort of general it's a little bit funny because it just kind of rings true, but yeah. So that was
a very understated performance in that it feels very natural. It doesn't feel like a performance. It's kind of what I guess I'm saying, but in a way, that's extremely good because that's the point.
It was funny because I haven't really seen Kate Winslet do anything like this. Like, not that she's not been working for the last while, but really the two things I think of when I think of Kate Winslet are obviously Titanic and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which wasn't that long, relatively speaking, after that. So this is kind of the first time I've seen her do like sort of middle-aged role. And she's a grandmother in this show, which is, I mean, it is sort of notable that she's a young grandmother. I mean, it's not, it's not Hollywood being really ageist and sexist and saying, yeah, you're grandmother age now. Young pregnancy is very much a theme in the show. So she's not the only character in this who's got a young kid, or a young grandkid in her case. So you've got all these things going, and I think it's the first time I've seen her play a role at this, and play a role where she is kind of this tired, middle-aged person who is a far cry from. I mean, when Titanic came out, she was basically the sex icon for the year. She was the woman who was on all the magazine covers. She was treated as the scene where he draws her bit topless, and it was a big thing, and it was all over pop culture. And it's kind of funny that part of her character in this is that she was kind of the star on the high school basketball team, and there's kind of this like almost like glory days that are long forgotten that she can barely remember, and she claims to kind of hate it coming up, but she also seems to kind of still care about it in a weird way.
It reminds me a lot of what they did with Michael Keaton in Birdman.
A little bit, yeah. There's a little bit of that going on. So And I don't know if I don't think it's even meant to be a meta thing. I'm sure it was already in the role, but the casting of Kate Winslet, when everyone thinks about her big role being 25 years ago, give or take, is notable. In fact, that was even the number they gave it in the episode. It was 25 years. That's what they said.
They did, yeah. And I guess it's one of those things that for any actor, you don't want to peak too early, right? You want to have hits and be remembered for roles, of course, but you don't want to look back and go, well, that's the thing you remember for, and then you kind of in obscurity for 20 years. Not saying she's in obscurity, but
not at all. I mean, and for the record, like, I actually think Eternal Sunshine's a much stronger performance and a much stronger film than Titanic. So, I hardly think she did. Although, speaking of connections to James Cameron, apparently she's in Avatar too. So
who isn't?
so we'll see that coming up, but
maybe.
I know, like, they'll finish shooting. I've seen set photos. Like, I believe it now. It exists.
I still don't.
It still exists.
It's Cameron trickery.
Yeah, it's Cameron trickery, and Cameron will come out and somehow.
No. It's trickery. Those set photos. They just took some pictures. They didn't actually film anything.
Oh, all right. It's just all a ruse. It's all a ruse. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at her IMDb. She's been constantly working the entire time, and I've heard of a lot of these things. They're just not the sort of things that I would watch, and that's why I've not seen her in a long time.
I can't say for sure because I'm not looking at this. I feel like she's just been like a lot of rom-coms and stuff like that.
I don't know about rom-com. Maybe Once Upon a Time.
Like spinning a handful.
I mean, would you count? I mean, that was before Titanic. That's a bad example. I don't know. The Mountain Between Us, is that a rom-com?
I don't know.
I mean, seems romantic-esque, her and Idris Elba, but it sounds a bit more serious than a rom-com to me. Where's the genre? Where do you... Action, adventure, and drama. I was not expecting that. Doesn't sound like a rom-com.
No, it doesn't. I'll grant you that one.
She was in Steve Jobs. I never saw Steve Jobs, but she was in that.
I saw one of the Steve Jobs films. I don't know if it was that one or the other one.
The point being is that I've not seen her in a long time. So it was a very interesting just jolt to be like, oh, Kate Winslet's like doing this now. This is very different from the last time I saw her in something. So, and I think that kind of added to the weird, like, Glory Days character time jump kind of aspect of it. So, yeah, very understated. Her mother's played by Jean Smart.
She's always pretty great.
Yeah, she's always been solid in the shows she pops up in. Her ex-husband is Roy from The Office. So,
yep.
You got him. And then Guy Pearce shows up as kind of this college professor, or he's not even a professor.
Out of towner.
Yeah, he's a guest book speaker. So he's kind of this random insertion, which is different. So yeah, the main cast is pretty good. And maybe this is less the cast, and maybe I probably shouldn't shit on the actor for this necessarily. It's maybe more the writing. But there's some stuff with the girl from Pacific Rim. She's this young mother. She's still in high school seemingly, but has a 1-year-old baby, and has a very horrible relationship with the father, who's the same age, and they're sharing custody, and she has a horrible relationship with this father's new girlfriend, and it's all very awful, and it all feels like, oh god, these people are far too young to be looking after a baby. But there's a scene where her father comes home, and her mother's seemingly dead or out of the picture or something at this point.
Yeah. And
the father comes home, and I swear this scene, because I thought the rest of the episode was pretty strong, if a little, quiet and understated, given that the plot's not really getting going till episode 2. But that aside, everything's very well directed, performances are very good, so on and so on. This scene where this father comes home and just runs down the cliches of the horrible father, where he's angry about his job, he's mad about the food that she's prepared for him, he's immediately going to the fridge for a beer, he yells in anger when the food's too hot, he complains about paying for the baby, paying for various other things. It's every cliche, and every time he raised his voice, I almost just rolled my eyes. I'm like, I get it, he's that dad.
Yeah. Do you know, like this guy, I can't remember the character's name, we're supposed to feel like really sympathetic for her, right?
Yes.
but there's a moment where she's texting someone, and she types the word "cool," and she instead of the two O's, she puts two emojis, and I went, I don't like you anymore. There's nothing you can do to redeem this character.
I think it's a bit harsh. I will say, I was absolutely more offended by the potential boy she was talking to, who was still typing in text speak in 2021. I can't abide by that by any stretch.
No.
The reason why text speak existed is because you had 3 letters to a button, so you kind of had to like try and condense things down to make it bearable.
Much like Twitter, you had character limits on your text messages,
for sure.
and you were charged per text.
For sure, yes. Now that you have full keyboards on your smartphones, there is no excuse. There is absolutely no excuse. No.
It's terrible.
Seeing "see you later" spelled with a C and a U was like, I get that your life's shitty. I really do. I get that your life's shitty. That was the other thing with this character, is her plot is kind of designed just to make you feel miserable in many ways. We'll save the rest of her stuff for spoilers, but
she also feels very disconnected from everything else.
Well, I thought there was kind of a fake out here in a weird way. I thought there was a connection to other characters, and then it kind of swerved me a little bit and revealed that it wasn't.
Is that spoiler territory?
I don't know. Well,
because it's not.
It's spoiler territory if it was meant to be a sort of slight swerve.
Okay,
but
that's a fair point.
But if it was never meant to be a swerve, then I guess it wasn't. But I genuinely thought it was teasing a connection, and then it turned out no, they're separate.
It's interesting because I didn't. If it was intentional, I guess I never quite picked up on the connection or what they were potentially teasing. So I don't know. Maybe if you either I missed something, which is possible, or you just kind of read into something too much and were expecting something because you were looking for a connection. It's
very possible. Before we go into it, though, just wrapping up some spoiler-free thoughts, because it is very well directed. The performances are very good.
I just think, like, we talk about this a lot with TV pilots. You've got to have a hook at the end. You've got to have something for me to come back for. And
well, technically this does. Technically.
Well, but here's the thing. there being a body, and going, oh, there's a body now. I'm not sure that's a hook when that's the premise I went into the show for. You're marketing the show, you're selling the show to me as it's a murder mystery. Come along for the murder mystery. At the end of the first episode, there's a murder. That's not a hook.
That's why I said technically. The hook is the premise.
No, but that's the premise to get me into the show. That's not the hook to get me into the next episode.
No. In this case, the premise is a bit of a bait and switch to make you sort of explore these characters for an hour, and then the premise comes back as the hook. That's the function of this.
You forgot this was a murder mystery.
I don't think you ever forget because
it's so bleak.
Yes, it's very bleak, and it feels like there's possible danger sprouting at various places in the episode. But I will say that there's the subplot where there's like a girl went missing a year ago, and there's like this mother they're putting up the flyers and is mad that seemingly the police have not been able to find anything in all this time.
And Mare is okay. She's the one in charge of the case.
Well, say it is more like was, and it was kind of left behind, and
there's nothing to go on seemingly up to this point.
So, although presumably this new murder that happens is connected, and it'll sort of reinvigorate the case.
Unless this is the same one, because they never, again, I mean, this is spoiler territory. This is the premise of the backstory. There was no body found; she was just missing. They just hadn't found her yet. So this could be just the same person, right?
You clearly didn't recognize the body because it's not.
Okay, fair enough. I clearly didn't know.
That was a weird thing to hear, but I'm like,
fair enough. I clearly did not recognize the body because it was a weird angle in my defense.
Well, the body, it was a little discolored, having, been dumped naked and been in the water for some time. So I will concede that it wasn't jumping right out, but I was pretty clear who it was. So
fair enough. I wasn't really looking for. I was just like, oh, it's a body. Hey, my mind didn't look at who it was that closely.
Yeah. So let's go into some spoilers then, so we can talk about some things. So you've been warned, spoilers for episode 1 of Mare of Easttown. Although we're much late too, so there's a good chance that you've watched that already. So spoilers. Yeah, so the body at the end is the girl from Pacific Rim 2. Which, if anything, my bigger complaint, other than her father plot and the plot with the boyfriend being just kind of misery porn almost, was that everything with her felt like it was building to her being the victim. Like I could kind of tell that it was going to end with her being the murder victim. It felt like it was good, and in a way, just purely because everyone around her was so horrible that the point of her character was clearly that, oh no, her father could be the suspect, her boyfriend could be or her ex-boyfriend rather could be the suspect. Oh, the boyfriend's girlfriend could be the suspect. Like, it's building a case of people that we're going to be able to investigate over the next episode or two. So that's probably my biggest critique. Also, that and her friend that she goes to see before she goes to this like meet up at the woods where all the kids go for reasons. For some reason, this really stuck out to me. But I've never seen a character, particularly a teenage girl, just randomly wearing like WWE pajamas. I thought that was really specific and weird.
I didn't even notice.
I was like, is that a WWE logo? And it was. It's like it was just a logo all over her top, and I'm like, what? That's weird.
I did not even notice that logo. It's just, yeah, it was just the top as far as I was concerned.
It was just odd. It was just a very.
I
odd
thought
thing
that whole
to
scene was a little bit strange. It felt at odds with a lot of the other stuff in the episode. In general, like it was filmed very differently.
Well, this is the scene that convinced me that, because this is the thing. The thing I got wrong with her character is that I was convinced the person talking to her, who it sounded like she'd never met before, which turned out to be true, was the killer. I thought she was being lured into a secluded location for the murder. Turned out it was actually the ex-boyfriend's girlfriend who was doing this as like a mean prank to.
I will give you that. I also thought it was the killer. And I think the show plays it that way. She's very gullible and naive. Like, we're all clearly like, this isn't a real person. She goes along with it. And there's the shots where when she gets to the woods where, she's off for the meeting, it films, it's very sinister. Like, oh, there could be someone in the trees about to just take her, right?
Yeah. I was definitely getting that vibe.
Yeah, sure. I think the show wants you to feel that.
I guess that's why that's the sort of plot thread of the episode that felt the weakest to me in some ways, is that it just felt like it was very mechanical, and that it was just there to like set up all these potential suspects, to set up a little bit of sympathy for her, but it was almost trying too hard because it made her father such an asshole. It made her ex-boyfriend such an asshole. It made this girlfriend such an asshole. Like, it was just, everyone was extremely awful around her, except her friend that she goes to see that one time. Which I guess is just so that someone will actually give a shit that she's dead, potentially. Because our life is just, this is all the sympathy of like, okay, so she's got like a 1-year-old. Yeah, so the thing that I thought they were, because I assumed they were just connected, is because Kate Winslet, when we first see her, she's not with anyone, right? She just kind of gets up, she goes out, and she's like just moody and going to see the woman who called her, and she's nice enough to like go through the motions, but she's clearly just sick of these old people constantly talking and telling her things. But she mentioned she's got a grandkid, like a young grandkid, and she has to go get something for the young grandkid. I assumed that was a Thingy's baby. So I thought her daughter was, and she was separated from whoever her father was. Because keep in mind at this point, we hadn't met her father yet. So yeah. I was thinking, so that's her grandkid, and it makes sense. She's a young mother, and she's got a young baby. This all lines up.
It tracks, yeah, you can see that.
So I actually felt like a little bit of a reveal, because I think they intentionally put the two scenes back to back, where she goes home and we see her, because we see her go in and we see her talk to like her mother and her cousin who's a priest, which I actually thought their dialogue back and forth was quite funny.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's somehow one of the wittiest characters.
There was the line about how like she's complaining, well, all of a sudden he cooks now. Like, she's complaining that he's like a better husband now, and the priest cousin just goes, maybe you just need the love of a good woman to like get the best out of. That actually really made me, and because at first I thought, man, she's been kind of mean. I mean, I'm an atheist, right? So I'm not necessarily disagreeing with her, but she's been kind of mean where she keeps like prodding, like, hey, when you're giving sermons, do you think anyone's listening to you? And I thought, and it wasn't until like a couple of lines later where it's brought up that they're family. So they're just ribbing each. This is obviously a thing that she does constantly to wind them up.
This is like a lifetime of back and forth banter.
Yeah. So and then it was it doesn't. It feels less mean now. Now it just feels like, siblings almost just giving each other.
They do
shit.
feel quite close, yeah.
But that made me laugh, that line. But it was that I can't remember what the other scene was, but it was right then. When you actually finally see the grandkid, right? You see it's like a young boy, who's like like 4 or 5, whatever he is. Like it intentionally felt to me next to a scene as we found out who, or that she didn't have a mother, that she or who her father was. Like it was right next to that, so it felt like it was meant to feel like a double kind of whammy, where it was like, I
get where you come from, but I think I clocked it a bit earlier, or the reason I didn't put it together as leading that maybe this was her daughter and and grandkid was because of when she goes to get the aquarium for the turtle. She mentions we've already had like a lizard, and they did it's for the kid to look after. So I'm like, well, that's not going to be for a baby.
That's true. The kid to look after definitely was a bit of a weird line at that point, but maybe I wasn't thinking about it.
That didn't clock in for you, yeah.
So it is what it is. It's not a big deal. But it sets up all these character connections. So you've got her daughter's the kid from Nice Guys, who has got a bit of an attitude. She's got a girlfriend. She's in a band. She seems to get on quite well with presumably her father, as the ex-husband. You would assume.
Yeah, I'm assuming so, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course.
Because that was the thing. I was like, wait, is she the mother of the young grandkid then? But then, of course, the young kid refers to her by name like constantly, and I was like, wait a minute, okay, so no. And the only really hint we get is that there's like a moment where Mare, it's the only kind of stylistic moment like this where she kind of sees someone who's not there, and it's just when she's first waking up at the end of the episode, she sees like a man in the corner, and it's like, oh, I think that's her son. I think that the link between her and her grandkid is gone somehow. We don't know why. I don't know if he's dead. I don't know if something happened to him or whatever, but he's not here.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, because I was thinking about it. I was like, well, I don't think she's the mother of this kid then. Who's the missing link? Who's the child who had the kid? Because someone had this kid.
Yeah, well, obviously, that's true of pretty much all kids, right?
Yeah.
But no, I come from. I didn't think it was her either, because it was it was just the relationship didn't seem quite right for that.
Yeah. Although it's funny because of the ages, it feels more like a big sister and a little brother, but she's actually his auntie.
Yeah.
Well, assuming we're right about.
Assuming we're right, yeah.
But then again, I mean, unless it's some sort of weird, like, different thread of the family kind of thing where he's not related to her somehow, she'll be his auntie.
Yes. I'm waiting for us to be proven wrong somehow.
So maybe there's a way, but like the most logical path says that she's his auntie.
It does. I'll be honest. I didn't think about the family tree that hard.
No, nor did I. But this is now that I'm thinking through it. So, So Mare goes to this basketball thing whilst the others are at this engagement party. She has some words with the woman who's looking for a missing daughter. Kind of takes it personally that she's going on TV and criticizing the police investigation, because even though she never mentions Mare necessarily by name, she's the one doing the investigation.
It's a fairly small town. I'm assuming it's reasonably common knowledge that she was the one handling it.
Yeah. And they get into the bar afterwards where she meets Guy Pearce. They get chit-chatting. She ends up going home with him and kind of wants to leave it at that, but he's like, nah, I had a nice time with you, and we could, meet at some point and whatever. So he's suspect number one right away. Like, he's relatively new to the town.
Yeah.
He's the stranger to the town.
I think it makes him too obvious a suspect, surely.
Honestly, the biggest thing is that he's Guy Pearce. Like, This is a fairly small role to have cast Guy Pearce in if he's not going to be prominent in some way.
I mean, I think he'll be prominent. I just don't think he's the murderer.
Yeah, maybe it's too obvious. It's too red herring-y.
Yeah.
It's like
every so often you'll get one of those like everyone goes, well, that's too red herring-y, so it must be the right answer.
This is the thing. When you're doing a murder mystery, you're playing it on two fronts. You're playing in context of the universe and what the red herrings are, but then you're also trying to play the audience or try to second guess how you're writing the show because they've seen other murder mysteries.
There's a lot of double bluffing going on.
Yes, so you have to double and triple bluff for it to work in some level.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of simple things in the episode to show that despite kind of being miserable, that Kate Winslet does do a lot of nice things for people. The way she kind of treats the brother who breaks into the house to steal some stuff because he's an addict. And then likewise, she sees a prowler outside the window. That was what the call was for way back at the start of the episode. She kind of like goes out of her way, even when she's off duty, to kind of see that these things are taken care of peacefully.
Yeah, and like with the brother who obviously was clearly in the wrong for stealing, that's and she's aware of that. But also she's very conscious of the fact that it's winter and his heating's been shut off. So she's like, right, okay, well, we need to put him somewhere, warm and suitable, not just, leave him back to go there and, leave him to his problems. She does try and, go the extra step to help.
Yeah. And that was something I never heard of. I mean, obviously, it'll vary place to place, but the idea that even if you're behind on your bills, that the heating can't be shut off during winter months, it's illegal to do that to someone, is an interesting...
Makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
It does.
Especially in colder areas.
Yeah, because you're basically killing the person, effectively.
I mean, in some cases, not even effectively, it straight up is.
Yes. Well, I mean, effectively in the sense that, you're not pulling the trigger, you're just loading the gun.
And yeah,
like
I'm waiting for a strong gust of wind to just pull the trigger for you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Literally in this case, in a way. So I don't know, but yeah, she's always kind of like very aware of the people around her. She's always trying to do the best, which is kind of it's almost kind of, I said it was more, she felt more real, and she does, but in a weird way it is kind of the middle-aged, mother of multiple kids version of the disgruntled cop who is, I guess in a lot of ways it's a less quirky version of like something you would find in Fargo.
I can see that. I think the reason it sells as more natural and realistic is, these good deeds that we're talking about here aren't anything extreme.
No,
it's not like it's her going, send him to a shelter. Like, it's her just, as she walks past, sees someone, she's like, all right, I'll put in the call. She's not like going over the top. She's not really going out of her way to do a lot. It's just enough that makes her feel like a good person without being, overwritten to be good.
Yeah. None of it's like overly cheesy or anything like that. It's just simple little, like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do, so I'll do it, kind of thing. And even arguably more than she's supposed to, actually, because the fact that she even just goes directly to the house where she's been called personally as a detective instead of saying, no, call the station, they'll send
out a beat cop.
Yeah. Is her going above and beyond. So that's or even her being nice to the rookie who's like scared of blood. Yeah, it's just
things that
all things.
It is. Like I say, it's nothing that is extreme. It is above and beyond the expectation, like you say there, but nothing that's unrealistically, that a lot of people would do, or you'd expect a lot of people to do these sorts of things.
And I think it's kind of, it obviously it has these few examples, and the reason why I think it has a few of them is because they also show her to be willing to get into an argument. She kind of confronts the mother who's looking for her daughter right before the celebration thing. Like the second she's right in front of her, she starts just like asking her about it, and it feels very confrontational. Not in like a she's ready to fight kind of way, just in a way that, oh, you're not just going to like let there be peace. You're going to immediately make this awkward. You're going to immediately start having a debate about this. The way she talks to her ex-husband, likewise, she immediately starts like being very like biting and sarcastic with him, and things like that. oh, did you get down on one knee? You never did that for me. And he very genuinely says, I was 20. I did a lot of stupid things and made a lot of mistakes, right?
Again, I think it's very important. It doesn't feel like he's a bad guy.
No, not
and
at
it
all.
doesn't feel like she's a we just talked about how she's obviously a good person. Like I say, he was very clear that he hasn't always been necessarily a good person, or like I say, he did stupid stuff, but he seems perfectly nice right now. He has a seemingly good relationship with the kids, right?
Yeah. Healthy relationship with these new right to be. Like, yeah, he seems like he's. It's not even necessarily he was a bad guy before, just that he was young and stupid.
And it doesn't seem like he's particularly bad to her now either, or anything. They're clearly still on civil talking terms.
Yes, but they've got the Everybody Loves Raymond set up where he's living right, not across the road. It's actually across the backyard. It's behind the house, but same difference.
Yeah, right there. Just enough to make it awkward.
Yes. So she gets to wake up and look out of her bedroom window every morning and possibly catch a glimpse of her ex-husband and his happy new life in the kitchen making his breakfast or something.
That's got a sting. So I think I'm glad this was a weekly release show. I think this would be horrible to binge just because of how bleak it is. I feel miserable after watching 7 hours of this in one day.
Yeah, I'll say this. She cracks a joke when she first meets Guy Pearce, and he says, I just moved here from whatever. And she says, oh, I'm sorry, or something to that. And he's like, oh, it's not so bad. But to be fair, because of the tone of the episode and how bleak it feels, it actually made me kind of like go, nah, she's
got a point here.
She's got a point. Yeah. It does feel like kind of a crappy little town.
It does, yeah.
But the people feel real for the most part, which is why I think the plot with the Pacific Rim girl stuck out to me, because everyone in that plot felt like a cartoon in comparison to every other character.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I'd say hopefully that's just an episode 1 thing, but at the very least, those other characters are going to be questioned and be suspects.
Yeah, they'd have to be. They're all showing up again.
I wonder though, once you have like Kate Winslet like acting with them, like does that like raise the bar a little bit?
Or does it make them stand out more?
Or does it make it worse? I don't know. Or maybe once they're like afraid because they're clearly a suspect for a murder when they know they're innocent, maybe that like changes the tone enough that they're not as comically villainous. I don't know. For maybe the surprising thing would to be actually see the dad kind of get emotional about it, maybe be upset that his daughter's dead, perhaps after what we saw of him this episode.
Or is he just going to be annoyed that he's looking after the baby?
Well, would it be? Oh no, you mean the teenage dad? I mean her dad.
Oh well, I don't know who'd be looking after the baby.
I presume it'd go to the father of the baby, but
it would in theory. But also, if something happens and he's a suspect for murder, it plays for both of them, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're both equally suspects for the murder.
Well, they are to us, but if you're looking at it from, okay, where's the evidence leading? If it leads to the teenage father first, they might leave the baby with the grandfather.
It
right?
absolutely leads to him. He's involved in this phone prank. He was out in the woods near where she was. Like, there's a lot more reasons pointing to him than it is him.
Exactly. So
the father.
If they go to that first, they might leave the baby with the grandfather.
Yes. Clearly, one of the caveats of this episode 1 is that we're referring to too many characters as the father and the mother and the child and the grandchild. Like, there's too many characters overlapping here with titles.
There is, yeah.
But I'm hoping everyone's seen it by now, so they completely understand what we're saying. So that's basically it. That is it's just very strongly directed first episode, and I suspect that, assuming the mystery is good, and I've heard that it is, it probably will end up being the weakest episode of the bunch, just by its nature.
Quite possibly, yeah. I think it is just a shame how it feels so open for a first episode of a TV. If this was the start of a movie, I'd be going, oh no, this is a great start. But as a full just rounded hour on its own, it's a bit lackluster.
I would say that if I had I think the reason why I didn't check this out the day it launched is because I was still doing the Nevers, and that was on the same night. So it was a bit of a challenge, like trying to fit in episode 1 of this as well. If I'd watched episode 1 when this aired, I would have definitely been into it enough to try episode 2. I'd have been curious to see what they do with it once everything got going.
I think I agree with that.
As it is, obviously it's doing this now after it's already done. Whether or not I look at episode 2 will be entirely based on how many people watch and like and comment on this review. Not to put it all on you guys, but
well, all I'm saying is I'm pretty sure it just finished airing like a week ago, so maybe it's still hot enough that
maybe
people care.
Maybe people will be interested in watching me try to figure out who the killer is. I don't know, but
people love being the smart one in the room where they all know the answer and you don't.
They do. But so if there's enough interest in the raw numbers, I hate to be cold with it like that, but I mean that's just fundamentally what will make it worthwhile doing. Well, at least worthwhile reviewing, not necessarily worthwhile watching. But
I think we're both safe to say it probably is worthwhile checking out if you're into. If for some reason you're watching this now and you haven't watched it yet, if you're into a very bleak murder mystery, this seems like a pretty safe recommendation.
I mean, to compare it to other HBO shows of recent few years, I would say this is definitely a better first episode than the 3rd season of True Detective.
Absolutely.
I would say that for sure. I'm sure
I mean, you mentioned Fargo earlier. I think this is a stronger start than the last couple of seasons of Fargo have had.
Oh yeah, season 4 for sure. But even 3 probably as well. Yeah. I would agree with that.
I think it's a really solid piece of filmmaking that, taken as part of a larger collective of the, if you view the season as kind of a 7-ish hour movie, is probably excellent if this is anything to judge by, if it holds up the quality.
All right, there you go. That is our review of episode 1 of Mare of Easttown. Very solid on a lot of fronts. I do think the subplot with the girl that ends up being killed is probably just kind of bad, especially certain parts of it. But everything else is very good.
Also, if she got killed for using those emojis, it was probably justified.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm not saying it should have the death penalty, but
you're not entirely opposed to it either.
Tears will not be shed, shall I say. Let us know what you thought of the first episode of the show in the comments below. You can like and subscribe. That is super important for YouTube. It's why every YouTuber tells you to do it, because it's how YouTube gauges success and promotes more people towards your channel. So go do that. You can also, of course, catch us on the Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month, and help support all the content that we have. And also check out MailFuzz Movies, the other YouTube channel where the movie podcasts and random movie content lives. So that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?